When I started writing Get Out, I was in a state of great fear, and these projects have dug me out of that darkness.
Welcome. The year is 2012, and Jordan Peele is the co-star of a comedy show with his good friend, Keegan-Michael Key.
I first discovered you, as a lot of people did, watching Key and Peele sketches.
Where is 𝚑𝚘𝚘𝚗 right now?
These are so well written, and these two guys are playing them perfectly.
The amount of joy I got from the show and just watching you be a phenomenal performer.
It's so seldom that I see sketch comedy performers that I think are just magnificent, and you guys came along and just killed it.
Jordan Peele and Keegan Key were taking over the internet. Each skit
he just did it again!
was simply watched by millions of people.
You don't know that skit, oh my gosh, that is awesome. Got a little Key and Peele going on right there.
Everyone having its own unique twist.
I mean, there's so many great sketches, but that one...
Nobody is safe. I'm getting everybody, except for you, sir. I'm gonna leave you alone. Just like your date did tonight. Hello!
Comedian, insult comedian going around the audience and then respectfully passes over...
Who is next?
Someone who clearly has been in a horrible situation.
Burns all over them. Tries to start heckling and doing crowd work with the next guy, and the guy goes,
"You skipped me."
Who's talking right now?
Do me.
And he says, no, sir, I wouldn't do it. He says, I can take it. You make him do it, and then he does it.
He said he could take it. That's what he said.
I thought I could, but I can't.
I thought I could take it, but I can't.
And we had an amazing team of writers.
About 3 years later, while still getting the same amount of views, if not more,
300 short comedy films. If I wanted to do one again, I got to do it again, and ultimately, I'm sick of watching myself.
their legendary run comes to an end.
But we're just so honored that we got to share what we do with the world.
It seems like we quit it. Oh my God, just the right time.
We know that you can do comedy very well. We know that you also like horror.
When both of those tones can exist at the same time, they make each other better.
You knew by around about the age of 13 that you wanted to be a director.
You know, when I first came to Universal Studios as a kid, I was very enamored with movie making.
Jordan Peele is taking on his second ever directorial debut for the movie Us.
There's a family in our driveway.
There's not a family in our driveway.
When did you get the idea for this one?
I've been terrified of the idea of doppelgangers since I was a kid.
Oh. Who is that?
Just the idea of seeing yourself, and what if yourself just smiled at you, like, knowingly. And then so you think about, well, what's that about, and what kind of doppelganger could I add? And that's when I got the idea of the doppelganger family.
The next thing we're gonna do after this shot is the whole walk over and your reaction to her saying sit.
As he's doing what he's wanted to do since he was a kid, now he just has to not fail.
That's right, and that's when you realize, oh, he's got the scissors. This is this.
And it being a success is an understatement.
There's nothing better than being in a theater during one of my movies and hearing the audience go.
But how did he even get to this point?
Where does it all start?
I probably fell in love with comedy at the same time I was getting really scared. And I mean scared, like kid growing up in New York. I grew up next to a building called the Stratford Arms that was a hotel for transients. And it was basically very interesting characters, let's just put it that way. So those two things I think developed side by side, but at some point they collided for me.
There was a transformative moment where I told a scary story at a class trip where we went overnight into the woods. I was probably like 12, 13, terrified of the dark still. And even though I was a fan of movies, I'd watch horror movies and then I'd creep myself out. When I told this story, I just remember everyone going, oh, and it gave me power.
Obviously, he had an interest in the horror genre at an early age, but he also enjoyed watching movies, which he had a clear favorite.
But Nightmare on Elm Street, that imagery, is more seeing the posters and the thing that it just evoked such terror.
So his ultimate goal is to direct a movie. However, right now, he's focused on something else.
And so there was a point at which where you didn't think it was going to happen.
I think part of it was the subconscious feeling that there wasn't room in such a competitive industry, that if I tried and failed, it would devastate me. So the easier path was to go a different way.
I left college to become a comedian. I said, look, I don't need a degree to be funny.
Now Jordan Peele is traveling to Chicago, joining improv and comedy groups, getting his name out there.
I had no fallback.
Right.
I had no fallback plan. It was like, look, it's this or nothing.
He would do this for years, making the cast to be a part of Mad TV starting on its 8th season. Even though it wasn't at the height of its popularity, it was still huge, while getting about 2.5 million viewers per episode. This is when he met a good friend who joined just a year later.
Use the language, but for fortuitous enough to see y'all sitting in the room like this, and then I can't even believe this.
Jordan Peele is finally a well-known face in the industry, and now he can leverage his exposure to something he cares even more about.
I thought no one would ever make this movie, but I kept coming back to it because I knew if someone let me make this movie, that people would hear it and people would see it.
I didn't get to meet you, actually, up close. I'm Chris. I know who you are.
It's the toad in the pot theory, right? If you throw a toad into a boiling pot, then that person's gonna leave the scene. That character needs to get out of there. You don't want that as a horror film. You gotta keep them in this isolated spot. You slowly turn up the heat.
Yeah, the idea being the toad gets in, it's like lukewarm, kind of feels okay, and the temperature's slowly rising. Things are getting more and more uncomfortable.
And you can kind of believe why the character would convince themselves, oh, well, maybe it's just me.
When I wrote Get Out, I didn't even know if they would let me direct it. So luckily I found wonderful producers for it.
You're a known writer, performer, and then you say, I'd like to direct this. What's the reaction?
You know, it was surprisingly okay. I pitched it like, no one's ever gonna do this movie, but here's the pitch. He said, go for it. Just like a $5 million movie. You know, it was like kind of the perfect type of risk.
He's been given the chance to do what he's always wanted to do. But the thing is, if he fails, the chances of him still being a director will be slim.
And then the look for Rose, I think it's look back in the direction she just left.
If someone goes away for a weekend with his girlfriend and goes to a house, meet the family, if things are fucked up right away, you have all these reasons which I can relate to, which is, no, this is okay. This is all right. I'm gonna stay here. I'm gonna stay in this. Okay, I can handle this. And then you can, like you say, turn up the heat on the pot. But how you do it and how gradually you do it is really important.
Everyone kind of like connects to that anxiety of meeting your in-laws for the first time, and you want to crawl out of your skin and leave, but you can't.
The relationship between horror and comedy, it's a fascinating relationship because they are very much on opposite ends of the spectrum, and yet they kind of play off each other, and especially in this movie, they play off each other incredibly well.
I think they're two sides of the same coin. Any really successful, great horror movie, you go and see it in an audience, there's gonna be laughter, of nervousness. They're both about building the tension and releasing in some way.
In February, you made your debut with Get Out. The LA Times called it a cultural phenomenon. It's on a ton of Oscar lists. Highest grossing debut film based on original screenplay ever.
Here's the cool thing. It cost $5 million to make, but it made $230 million. That's the next level.
You were for a very long time putting out some of the funniest content, and now it's just like scary shit.
People are writing papers around this movie. I understand you went to one of these classes.
So I went in with a hood. They were playing a clip from the movie, and I kind of snuck in, and I was in the hood. The teacher, Mrs. Du, said, what do you think the director was thinking? And I just raised my hand, and I was like, I have an opinion on that matter. They turned, and it was like the best welcoming I ever had. They went crazy.
Wow.
He started working on this script the year after he left Mad TV. So that's 9 years ago.
Did you enjoy this year as well, being at the Oscars?
This means so much to me. I stopped writing this movie about 20 times because I thought it was impossible.
With the success of Get Out, he is not just seen as the funny guy anymore.
Get Out was a sensation, continues to be.
You don't just create a story, you also create stars. You also give people an opportunity to shine on the screen.
I went to the Gold Party afterward, which is Jay-Z's party. And he's giving me what you've done, you don't even understand. And at some point I was like, how do you follow this up? It works perfectly. I'm just afraid I'm not gonna be able to replicate or beat it.
Get Out is one of the greatest movies that has ever been made. From that moment onwards, everyone is expecting you to create the greatest movie ever made.
How do I succeed Get Out? How do I not disappoint audiences? Getting the Oscar, becoming a pop culture phenomenon. Were you kind of racked with that kind of burden going into this one? Because it's a tough act to follow.
Yes, I was very racked with that burden.
Jordan Peele is set to direct his third movie, and people have a lot of high expectations for it.
The first notion that I latched onto when I was writing this movie was making something people would have to see. First and foremost, I wanted to make a UFO horror film. I felt like I was fighting for cinema. I was fighting for the theatrical experience when I was writing this film.
We tried to make a big summer blockbuster that you can enjoy whatever way you want.
Daniel Kaluuya, guys, have become quite the dynamic duo. We came to know him in Get Out. We see him again here. What is it about working with Daniel that makes it so special?
I said it before, I'll say it again. He's my favorite actor to watch and to work with as well. That's my star.
The stakes are high and the bar is high because Jordan Peele set it there.
Do you feel pressure from the industry in the position that you're in?
I'm living my dream here.
What was your dream?
Be a director.
A couple times I'm watching, I'm thinking, this is really expensive. They gave Jordan Peele the checkbook.
You have made 3 great films that I really recommend to everybody.
Very surreal to even be able to call myself a director.
If someone had said to you 10, 15, 20 years ago that Jordan Peele, one of his films, would have permanent space here on the lot at Universal, what would you have said?
I would have said, well, then it would have worked. My plan would have worked.
As he's done many more things in comedy,
Are you kidding me? You walk behind me. We gonna do like a teardrop.
All right, let me explain something to y'all real quick.
Do you miss performing? Or is it like, nope, that was fun, done with that?
It's hard to say. I guess maybe a little bit.
The music sting hits, and everyone goes, oh, everyone jumps, and then you hear, you stupid, you no, you jumped.
see you next time.